The comma. The comma was invented to help readers. Without it, sentence parts can collide into one another unexpectedly, causing misreadings. Confusing. If you cook, Elmer will do the dishes. While we were eating a rattlesnake approached our campsite. Add commas in the logical places after cook and eating, and suddenly all is clear. No longer is Elmer being cooked and the rattlesnake being eaten. Various rules have evolved to prevent such misreadings and to speed readers along through complex grammatical structures. These rules are detailed in this section. Use a comma before a coordinating conjunction joining independent clauses. When a coordinating conjunction connects two or more independent clauses, word groups, that could stand alone as separate sentences, a comma must come before the conjunction. There are 7 coordinating conjunctions in English: and, but, or, nor, for, so, yet. A comma tells readers that one independent clause has come to a close and then another is about to begin. The department sponsored a seminar on college survival skills, and it also hosted a barbecue for new students. If the 2 independent clauses are short and there's no danger of misreading, the comma may be omitted. The plane took off and we were on our way. As a rule, do not use a comma with a coordinating conjunction that joins only 2 words, phrases, or subordinate conjunctions. A good money manager controls expenses and invests surplus dollars to meet future needs. The word group following and is not an independent clause. It is the second half of a compound predicate, controls and invests. Use a comma after an introductory clause or phrase. The most common introductory word groups are clauses and phrases functioning as adverbs. Such word groups usually tell when, where, how, why, or under what conditions the main action of the sentence occurred. A comma tells readers that the introductory clause or phrase has come to a close and that the main part of the sentence is about to begin. When Irwin was ready to iron, comma, his cat tripped on the cord. Without the comma, readers may think that Irwin is ironing his cat. The comma signals that his cat is the subject of a new clause, not part of the introductory one. The comma may be left out after a short adverb clause or phrase if there is no danger of misreading. In no time, we were at 2,800 feet. Sentences also frequently begin with participial phrases that function as adjectives, describing the noun or pronoun immediately following them. The comma tells readers that they are about to learn the identity of the person or thing described. Therefore, the comma is usually required even when the phrase is short. Buried under layers of younger rock, comma, the Earth's oldest rocks contain no fossils. Other introductory word groups include transitional phrases and absolute phrases. Use a comma between all items in a series. When 3 or more items are presented in a series, those items should be separated from one another with commas. Items in a series may be single words, phrases, or clauses. Langston Hughes' poetry is concerned with racial pride, comma, social justice, comma, and the diversity of the African American experience. Although some writers view the last comma in a series as optional, most experts advise using the comma because its omission can result in ambiguity or misreading. My uncle willed me all of his property, houses, and boats. Comma, comma, comma. Did the uncle will his property and houses and boats, or simply his property consisting of houses and boats? If the former meaning is intended, a comma is necessary to prevent ambiguity. Use a comma between coordinate adjectives not joined with and. Do not use a comma between cumulative adjectives. When 2 or more adjectives each modify a noun separately, they are coordinate. Roberto is a warm, gentle, comma, gentle, comma, affectionate father. If the adjectives can be joined with and, and the adjectives are coordinate, so you should use comma, warm and gentle and affectionate, which becomes warm, comma, gentle, comma, affectionate. Adjectives that do not modify the noun separately are cumulative. 3 large gray shapes moved slowly toward us. Beginning with the adjective closest to the noun, shapes. These modifiers lean on one another, piggyback style, with each modifying a larger word group. Gray modifies shape, large modifies gray shapes, and 3 modifies large gray shapes. Cumulative adjectives cannot be joined with and, not 3 and large and gray shapes. Coordinating adjectives. Should patients with severe, irreversible brain damage be put on life support system? Adjectives are coordinate if they can be connected with and make sense. Severe and irreversible. Cumulative adjectives. Ira ordered a rich chocolate layer cake. Ira did not order a cake that was rich and chocolate and layer. He ordered a layer cake that was chocolate, a chocolate layer cake that was rich. So therefore, if it doesn't make sense to put and in between the adjectives, then they are cumulative adjectives and not coordinate adjectives. Use commas to set off non-restrictive, non-essential elements. Do not use commas to set off restrictive, essential elements. Certain word groups that modify nouns or pronouns can be restrictive or non-restrictive, that is, essential or not essential to the meaning of a sentence. These word groups are usually adjective clauses, adjective phrases, or appositives. Restrictive elements. A restrictive element defines or limits the meaning of the word it modifies. It is therefore essential to the meaning of the sentence and is not set off with commas. If you remove a restrictive modifier from a sentence, the meaning changes significantly, becoming more general than you intended. Restrictive, no commas. The campers need clothes that are durable. Scientists who study the Earth's surface are called geologists. The first sentence does not mean that the campers need clothes in general, and the intended meaning is more limited. The campers need durable clothes. The second sentence does not mean that scientists in general are called geologists. Only those scientists who specifically study the Earth's structure are called geologists. The italicized word groups are essential and are therefore not set off with commas. Non-restrictive modifiers, however, describe a noun or pronoun whose meaning has already been clearly defined or limited. Because the modifier contains non-essential or parenthetical information, it is set off with commas. If you remove a non-restrictive element from a sentence, the meaning does not change dramatically. Some meaning may be lost, but the defining characteristics of the thing or person described remain the same. Non-restrictive elements. The campers need sturdy shoes, which are expensive. The scientists, who represented 8 different universities, met to review applications for the prestigious Belger Award. In the first sentence, the campers need sturdy shoes, and the shoes happen to be expensive. In the second sentence, the scientists met to review applications for the award. They represented 8 different universities. Is informative, but not critical to the meaning of the sentence. The non-essential information in both sentences is set off with commas. Often it is difficult to tell whether a word group is restrictive or non-restrictive without seeing it in context and considering the writer's meaning. The dessert made with fresh raspberries was delicious. The dessert, made with fresh raspberries, was delicious. In the first example, the phrase "made with fresh raspberries" tell which of 2 or more desserts the writer is referring to. In the example with commas, the phrase merely adds information about one dessert. Adjective clauses. Adjective clauses are pattern-like sentences containing subjects and verbs, but they function within sentences as modifiers of nouns or pronouns. They always follow the words they modify, usually immediately. Adjective clauses begin with a relative pronoun, who, whom, whose, which, that, or with a relative adverb, where, when. Non-restrictive clauses are set off with commas. Restrictive adjective clauses are not. Non-restrictive clause with commas. Ed's house, comma, which is located on 13 acres, comma, was completely furnished with bats in the rafters and mice in the kitchen. The adjective clause, which is located on 13 acres, does not restrict the meaning of Ed's house. The information is non-essential and is therefore set off with commas. The giant panda that was born at the San Diego Zoo in 2003 was sent to China in 2007. Because the adjective clause that was born at the San Diego Zoo in 2003 identifies one particular panda out of many, the information is essential and is therefore not set off with commas. Use that only with restrictive essential clauses. Many writers prefer to use which only with non-restrictive, non-essential clauses, but usage varies. Adjective phrases. Prepositional or verbal phrases functioning as adjectives may be restrictive or non-restrictive. Non-restrictive phrases are set off with commas. Restrictive phrases are not. So non-restrictive phrase. The helicopter with its million candle power spotlight. The helicopter, comma, with its million candle power spotlight illuminating the area, comma, circled above. The with clause is non-essential because its purpose is not to specify which two or more helicopters is being discussed. The phrase is not required for readers to understand the meaning of the sentence. Restrictive phrase, no commas. One corner of the attic was filled with newspapers dating from the early 1900s. Dating from the early 1900s restricts the meaning of newspapers, so the comma should be omitted. Appositives. An appositive is a noun or noun phrase that renames a nearby noun. Non-restrictive appositives are set off with commas. Restrictive appositives are not. Non-restrictive appositive with commas. Darwin's most important book, comma, On the Origin of Species, comma, was the result of many years of research. So most important restricts the meaning to one book. So the appositive, On the Origin of Species, is non-restrictive and should be set off with commas. Restrictive appositive, no commas. The song Viva la Vida was blasted out of huge amplifiers at the concert. Once they've read song, readers still don't know precisely which song the writer means. The appositive following song restricts its meaning, so the appositive should not be set off with commas. Use commas to set off transitional and parenthetical expressions, absolute phrases, and word groups expressing contrasts. Transitional expressions. Transitional expressions serve as bridges between sentences or parts of sentences. They include conjunctive adverbs such as however, therefore, and moreover, and transitional phrases such as for example, as a matter of fact, and in other words. When a transitional expression appears between independent clauses in a compound sentence, it is preceded by a semicolon and is usually followed by a comma. Min did not understand our language, semicolon. Moreover, comma, he was unfamiliar with our customs. When a transitional expression appears at the beginning of a sentence or in the middle of an independent clause, it is usually set off with commas. Natural foods are not always salt-free, semicolon. Celery, comma, for example, comma, contains more sodium than most people think. If a transitional expression blends smoothly with the rest of the sentence, calling for little or no pause in reading, it does not need to be set off with a comma. Expressions such as also, at least, certainly, consequently, indeed, of course, moreover, no doubt, perhaps, then and therefore do not always call for a pause. Alice's bicycle is broken, semicolon. Therefore, you will need to borrow Sue's. Parenthetical expressions. Expressions that are distinctly parenthetical, providing only supplemental information, should be set off with commas. They interrupt the flow of a sentence or appear at the end as afterthoughts. Evolution, comma, as far as we know, comma, doesn't work this way. Absolute phrases. An absolute phrase which modifies the whole sentence usually consists of a noun, followed by a participle or participial phrase. Absolute phrases may appear at the beginning or at the end of a sentence and should be set off with commas. Absolute phrase. The sun appearing for the first time in a week, comma. We were at last able to begin the archaeological dig. Elvis Presley made music industry history in the 1950s, comma, his records having sold more than 10 million copies. Do not insert a comma between the noun and the participle in an absolute construction. The next contestant being 5 years old, comma, the host adjusted the height of the microphone. Word groups expressing contrast. Sharp contrast beginning with words such as nut, not, never, and unlike are set off with commas. Unlike Robert, comma, Celia loves using Instagram. Use commas to set off nouns of direct address, the words yes and no, interrogative tags, and mild interjections. Forgive me, comma, Angela, comma, for forgetting your birthday. The film was faithful to the book, comma, wasn't it? Use commas with expressions such as he said to set off direct quotations. In his letter from Birmingham, comma, Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, comma, we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Use commas with dates, addresses, titles, and numbers. On December 12, 1890, orders were sent out for the arrest of Sitting Bull. Commas are not needed if the date is inverted or if only the month and year are given. 15 April 2009, January 2018. The elements of an address or a place name are separated with comma. A zip code, however, is not preceded by a comma. Please send the package to Greg Tarvin at 708 Spring Street, comma, Washington, comma, Illinois 61571. If a title follows a name, set off the title with a pair of commas. Ann Hall, comma, MD, comma, has been appointed to the Board of Trustees. Numbers. In numbers more than 4 digits long, use commas to separate the numbers into groups of 3, starting from the right. In numbers 4 digits long, a comma is optional. Do not use commas in street names, zip codes, telephone numbers, or years with 4 or fewer digits. Many common misuses of the comma result from a misunderstanding of many comma rules. And so I will go over unnecessary comma usage in my next video. So if you have any questions, you can email me at any time. And if you like this video about comma usage, then don't forget to subscribe to my Professor H writing channel. So in my next video, I'll go over unnecessary comma usage.